Find it at ae911truth.org. And it's not a skeptical point of view I present, it's just the facts found in the science-based forensic evidence at the crime scene. I've been an architect for 22 years, licensed, member of the American Institute of Architects, and I've worked on a number of very large projects, including a $400 million project most recently in Las Vegas with 1.2 million square feet of mid-rise and office structure, parking structure, and retail. 1,200 tons of steel framing altogether. Well, I had never heard much of the evidence that he was presenting on the mainstream media or from our government, from the NIST reports. And I went and looked, and certainly this evidence is very clearly, it exists. He didn't make it up. Others aren't making it up. These buildings were brought down by explosive controlled demolition, the 3 World Trade Center skyscrapers. And most people don't even know, of course, about the third one. This is Building 7, a football field in length away from the North Tower. And at 5:20 in the afternoon on 9/11, it begins a precipitous and sudden, smooth, symmetrical collapse straight down into its own footprint, and all the steel columns and beams are broken up from each other, collapsing like a house of cards in a pile about 4 stories tall. Now this collapses at free fall acceleration. Where have we seen this before? Oh, in the old hotels in Las Vegas, for instance, when they bring a building down by implosion or classic controlled demolition, as fast as a brick is falling off of the top of this building is how fast this building falls straight down through the path of what was the greatest resistance, the 40,000 tons of structural steel designed to keep that building intact for all those years. Well, what we have evidence for is the free fall smooth acceleration of a 47-story skyscraper into its own footprint like a house of cards, with several tons of molten metal found at the base of this building, flowing like lava, the first responders say. Even the World Trade Center structural engineer himself, Leslie Robertson, finds this material and his associate, Richard Garlock, dripping, the ends of these beams dripping with molten metal. Well, fires don't do that. Now fires are the official cause of this building's demise. There were about 8 to 10 fires according to the official story, and according to the photos and videos, they're fairly small and randomly placed. And so what we know is that fire is an organic process. It moves through a building every 20 minutes or so, burning out one area, moving on to the next, looking for fresh new fuel sources. And so when fire causes a building to collapse, the building will fall over. It's an organic process. There's an asymmetrical collapse. But never before in history has fire ever brought down a steel frame high-rise. Well, the only way we can bring a building like Building 7 down smoothly, symmetrically, is to take out the core columns within 1/10 of a second of each other on each given floor.
So you're saying that there were coordinated explosive devices in all these buildings, yes?
Yes, and
okay,
there's witnesses that hear sounds of these explosions. So we have...
Okay, where are these witnesses that say that they heard the sound of bombs going off in these buildings? Are they...
Oh, yeah, we have Kevin McPadden, the former Air Force medic, who says it's like the ground shaking and you wanted to grab onto something. In August of 2005, this information that was suppressed, the oral histories of 500 first responders, turns out 118 of them, we learn, are talking about sounds of explosions and flashes of light at the very onset of the destruction of these buildings. They describe it pop, 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 all the way around the building, like a belt, many of them say. And then we have these incredible ejections of pulverized concrete all symmetrically around the building, and then as the top portion, in the case of the North Tower, we have this 15-story section compressing itself exactly like a classic controlled demolition until it's completely disintegrated in 4 seconds. and that's the mass that we're told drove the rest of the building down. But in all the photos and videos, you can clearly see that it's gone in that amount of time, and then after that, it's the building itself tearing itself apart at almost free-fall acceleration, symmetrically, smoothly, straight down the building, hurling 9-ton perimeter wall units 600 feet laterally at 60 miles per hour. It's an extremely redundant steel frame moment-resisting system. If one column was, and by the way, those heavy columns are down in the 5th floor and down below, the initiation of collapse, according to the official story, NIST, whom we're calling for a federal grand jury investigation of as a result of their cover-up of this evidence, they say the 12th floor is the location of the initiation of this collapse. And yet the fires were out an hour and a half before that, and the video and photographic evidence show that very clearly.
Is it true that there were diesel fuel tanks in Building 7?
Yeah, it is true, and NIST themselves now acknowledge that they did not play a part in the destruction of this building. We're looking at normal office fires with some small portion played by the impact damage from the beams that flew so far out of the side of the North Tower. Well, we know it wasn't because the diesel fuel was on the floor that had shutters on it, and no smoke was coming out of that.
But these tanks, again, you may dispute this, but as I understand the reports, these diesel tanks were on upper floors, actually with a fuel pumping system from the bottom floor going up to these upper floors where these diesel tanks were. There were several diesel tanks, were there not?
No, they're not up on the 12th floor.
I didn't say that. They were on the upper. They were on upper floors. They weren't down in the basement.
No, they were in the first 5 floors.
Okay.
And NIST themselves say clearly in their report that this is not a part of the diesel fuels did not play any part. So at some point we have to agree on our terms. All 1,000 architects and engineers that have signed our petition are demanding that very thing, a new investigation that's unimpeachable and with subpoena power. We find in all of the dust the 90,000 tons of concrete that's been pulverized to a fine powder and laid throughout lower Manhattan in a 4 to 12 inch thick blanket. All of that dust has in it billions of very small iron microspheres, each about the diameter of a human hair and a little bit larger. So these are documented by the USGS and environmental firms as being characteristic of all of this dust. Where does previously molten iron, with the chemical evidence of manganese and aluminum in it, which is the byproduct only of thermite, an incendiary used by the military to cut through steel like a hot knife through butter. What is it doing in all of the World Trade Center dust? How did it get there? Well, the only rational explanation is that with thousands of thermite cutter charges going off under explosive conditions, you would disperse the liquid molten iron, its byproduct, into these extremely small spherical shaped objects, because that's what liquid does when it's atomized like that. There's no other explanation that can explain the occurrence of these up on top of the skyscrapers 2 to 3 blocks away, over on the Brooklyn Bridge, and in all the other dust samples. Find it at ae911truth.org.